It's crazy to me that the iPad first generation is now almost 15 years old. This was released back in March of 2010, and so now that it's over a decade and a half old, how does it hold up now? I'm Adam Sneebold, and I'm going to tell you how it holds up in 2024. The iPad first generation had quite a unique design. I don't think there was any iPhones with an all aluminum back as well as an aluminum sides, but I do really like it. It is definitely bulky though. On the bottom of the iPad, we have a 30-pin connector as well as a speaker grill, and on the top, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is kind of cool to see. Now, before I move on to the actual display and screen, unfortunately, I would like to say a lot of this video, it won't show the display on because the display on this iPad does not work. I have tested this iPad before with the display working many times in the past. It's just that this specific iPad does not work in terms of its screen. This iPad has a resolution of 768 by 1024. It is a 9.7-inch screen, and funny enough, there are still 9.7-inch iPads that are still being sold by Apple today. However, this is an LCD that does not get very bright. In my testing, it really does not work unless you are in the shade and any other kind of place like that. The borders are also extremely thick, but what I will say is that it was a really big screen for something like 2010, and kind of looking back, it's really impressive what Apple did back in the day. In terms of the storage department, we got an option for 16 gigabytes of storage, 32, or 64. All of those options would not be suitable for 2024 or 2025. However, back in the day, it was definitely suitable. I personally have the 16 gigabyte model, and so overall, basically any kind of game that you do download, you're probably gonna have to watch your storage if there are really any games available anymore. Also, we have an Apple A4 chip as well as 256 megabytes of RAM. That is obviously a very old chip with not that much RAM. However, if you're playing something simple such as Temple Run or something like that, it'll probably work with not really many problems. You just gotta kind of keep in mind that this is an extremely old iPad, and so you're not gonna be expecting top tier gaming performance. You're really just gonna be expecting very, very basic games. So talking about battery life, we have a 6600 milliamp hour battery, which for a tablet is honestly kind of small. There are plenty of tablets with 10,000 milliamp hour batteries or even more than that, but this is actually perfectly suitable considering its screen size as well as its resolution. It is honestly totally fine. From my experience, there were times where I left this on standby for several months and it was still totally okay, which is really impressive. But even just using it normally without standby, you can get easily 5 to 6 or maybe even 7 hours of screen on time. Obviously, it depends on what you run, it depends on what you actually can run, and stuff like that, but overall, I think that the battery is really not going to be a problem for most people. Well, I guess it's time to talk about basically my final thoughts, the pricing, and whether you should buy it for any reason. So, first of all, my final thoughts is really that the iPad first generation is really a revolutionary device by Apple. I think that they were taking a pretty big risk with this. Obviously, a lot of people in the beginning had sort of a mixed reaction, but now basically every single student uses an iPad or at least some form of tablet, and the tablet industry really wasn't around before the iPad. Looking on eBay.com, I can tell that a lot of the iPads are being sold from somewhere around $20 to $40, which for that price, if you're thinking about putting this in your collection, not actually using this as a main tablet or anything else, it's actually really cool to check out, and I would kind of recommend it. The iOS is very old and kind of has a nostalgic feel, at least for me. But if you're using this for a legit reason, I probably wouldn't recommend it for most people, just because it has a very old software and just there's no camera and there's not really much use for it. Anyways guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button. My name's Adam, and I'll see you in the next one.